All right, let's get straight to Kuala Lumpur now, where Bloomberg's Sophie Cameron is there with our next guest, a specialist when it comes to the country's political economy. And Sophie, investors, we're all kind of seeking answers, right, as to how this unprecedented political transition takes place.
Yeah, Heidi, we are seeking answers when it comes to the economic plan for the new government under Mahathir Mohamad. And joining me to discuss the outlook is Terence Gomez. He's a political economy professor at the University of Malaya and an expert on government business relations. Terence, thank you so much for joining me today. Leading up to the market open this Monday, there was anticipation that we might see an adverse reaction, but it's looking fairly subdued. What's your gauge of that? Why is this?
Well, I would attribute it to one of the things that Dr. Mahathir did, which is to set up a council of elders. If you look at this council of elders, they comprise people who are what we call experts of the old guard, people who understand the economy very well. They have brought immediately some stability to the market.
Old guard coming in, does this mean more of the old ways, what we saw during the Mahathir era?
Yes, what we are seeing, although we have regime change, I would argue we are also seeing what I would call political continuity. By that I mean, if you look at the people who are going to be in the lineup, it will comprise people such as Mahathir, Anwar Ibrahim, and Daim Zainuddin. These were people who led the economy in the 1990s too. So in that sense, policies will be somewhat similar of the previous regime.
Old guard on the political side, this might bring a renewed focus on the old guard on the business side of things. Kleptocracy was something that was part of Najib's administration when it comes to concerns. With Mahathir's era, it came down to cronyism. Are we going to see more of that?
It will be difficult for them to replicate the crony-type business links that we saw of the 1990s because we have had regime change. And by that I mean we have a new set of parties long in the opposition who were critics of cronyism. That will be a check on Mahathir.
And with some of the figures in Malaysia's business world, the likes of Nanda Krishnan, the Vincent Tans of the world, how do you see them embracing this new environment?
Well, those people were developed by Mahathir and Anwar and Daim. They have become rather independent in business. Under Najib, they had to deal with a prime minister who was seen to be a bit of a kleptocrat. They will not have that problem now under the new administration. In fact, I would argue they would try to use this businessman in a far more productive way. And they would be quite happy with the policy changes that are going to be put in place.
So we have the right energy, the right experience in the business world to work hand in hand with the government?
Well, Mahathir did say that he wanted all hands, people with experience on board. He can't do that so much with the cabinet. The cabinet will have to comprise people who have never been in government before. But with the Council of Elders and with these businessmen being brought into the frame too, including, let me remind you, Robert Koch, then we will see policies which are being determined not just at the level of the cabinet, but outside the cabinet too. And that's good for the nation. Now,
as an example of how businessmen may have been put under pressure, Tony Fernandez comes to mind, and we saw AirAsia shares sinking this morning. What's your assessment of that situation?
Well, that goes to show the dominance of the single dominant party, UMNO, under the previous regime. You're not going to see, we have seen now the fall of the single dominant party, one of the last of the single dominant parties to fall in the world. So what we will see now is more checks and balances in government. So I don't think we will see the pressures that Tony faced under the new government. And let me remind you, there will be a far more free media that will be watching such things, so the government also will be kept in check.
Speaking of new dynamics, the political landscape has changed. Do you see a two-party system becoming more embedded with what we have now?
Yes, I do expect to see a two-party system. I do expect to see UMNO revamping itself. We have seen this in the past, for example, when we had another dominant party, the Kuomintang in Taiwan. When they fell, they went back, revamped themselves, and they came back to power. And you have a two-party system now in Taiwan. I expect to see the same thing happening here in Malaysia. UMNO is a big party. They've still got leaders there. And this new breed of leaders can now come to the fore and revamp the party in a way which could be good for Malaysia.
Could there be challenges to UMNO revamping itself? There's talk that they may have gone against their own constitution.
Yes, there will be serious problems. The old guard will want to hold on to power. I think there will be a young guard, young Turks, which will want to take over. We must be prepared for a period of serious infighting in UMNO too. But that is something they have to go through. And that will help clean up the whole system within the party. They'll know they have to change.
What is PAS's role in this new landscape?
PAS is a bit of an enigma. Going to the election, what we heard on the ground when I was traveling around the country is that there may have been an agreement between PAS and the Barisan Nasional, particularly UMNO. That agreement does not seem to have panned out to favor Barisan Nasional. It favored PAS. Now, PAS has got 18 parliamentary seats. They've got control of 2 state governments. They are a powerful party. But I would argue also PAS may have to revamp its thinking, its ideology, which is based on Islam, because it's got no credence outside the Malay heartland. So if they want to get national power, they will have to change too.
We're not out of the woods just yet, Terence. There could be a lot of leapfrogging potentially, which is frowned upon given this new energy we are seeing. What's your expectation?
Yeah, this hopping from between parties is not good. What is clear in this election is that people voted for change. They wanted a new type of governance, not the type that we saw under Barisan Nasional over all these 60-odd years. For those people from Barisan Nasional now to hop into the opposition, which is now in government, I don't see this as a good thing. The government of today has enough of a majority to rule. They should not be bringing these people into the fold.
What do you think then is the biggest concern surrounding that?
Well, when I look at it, my understanding is that they are worried about Sabah and Sarawak. They would like to have those parties under the new government. But they also would probably want to have a 2/3 majority, which would allow for the reforms that they want to institute. And I think this government does want to have reforms. But to have those reforms, you have to get a 2/3 majority in parliament too. You have to get the support of all the opposition parties too. That may be on the minds of the current government.
Now, speaking of reforms, there's talk, of course, of abolishing the GST, bringing back fuel subsidies. Lim Guan Eng is the finance minister designate. He would be the one to steer that plan. What do you make of his appointment?
Those are serious challenges. The GST brought in about 43 billion ringgit annually. If they're going to remove that, they are going to bring back the sales and services tax. That's only about 17 billion ringgit. I don't know where the shortfall is going to come from. There's also the issue of the subsidies, which they said they will bring back. These are populist type ideas, which won them the election, mind you. They cannot renege on those. So Lim Guan Eng, as the new finance minister, has a tough job on his hands in terms of how to offset those losses that he will now have to deal with for the budget.
He will hopefully share some details. What are you anticipating?
I'm not looking too much to Lim Guan Eng, to be frank. I'm looking to the Council of Elders. The Council of Elders comprise some very prominent economists as well as the former finance minister himself too. I think the ideas for the different types of policies that we're going to see will come from them, not so much from the politicians. The technocrats, if you like, will be the ones who will bring forth the policy changes that we are looking for.